Is a 1000 square centimeter foil too small for pump foiling? How long can you even pump such a small foil? And specifically, how is the code foil 1075R for pump foiling? And how it differs from its bigger brother, the 1250? Now, I was able to try them back to back, and this video is going to be mainly a review of the 1075, but also a comparison with the 1250, because I have quite some thoughts, and I'm pretty sure that they are not what you think about this comparison between these two foils. However, if you haven't watched last week's video where I reviewed the code foil 1250, please go ahead and watch it, because otherwise you're not really gonna fully understand this video, because I'm gonna refer to that video many times during this video. However, that said, I also want to mention that this video is unsponsored, unbiased, raw, honest truth, because I'm not sponsored from Code. If anything, I'm running another brand. I just like to review, test, and talk about foils. All right. So let's see if this is the foil for you, or if it's too small, or if it's not worth it. All right. Let's get into it. Like I said, I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the quality, the construction, the mast, the fuselage, the connection between fuselage and mast, because I covered that on the previous video where I review the 1250. So if you're interested on that, go ahead and watch that one. I'm really gonna focus mainly in this short video on the front wing and how it compares, like I said, to the 1250. Now, let's start from the dock start. This review is going to be mainly for dock starts, flat water pumping, and maybe some light wind downwinding. Now, it is a little bit different, a little bit more difficult to start than the 1250 R, again from Code, but it's not that difficult. It's definitely easier from what you would expect from a 1000 foil. And that's because probably the aspect ratio, probably the camber, so it's still got a good low end. After, like, I tried it, like I said, back to back after 1250, and I started it at the first trial. So it's, again, you can imagine that it's pretty similar in terms of start to the 1250. Now, probably you can rock start and static start at the 1250 quite easily, but you're gonna have a harder time definitely starting the 1075 from a static position. Right, so maybe that's something that you want to consider if you're planning on beach starting, rock starting, or doing any other sort of dead start. That said, it's a little difficult. Okay, so that's why on the score at the end of this video, I'm gonna give it a slightly higher score, because there is a bigger entry barrier. However, I'm gonna reveal that now. I would never ever buy both, because they are quite similar. And again, I'm gonna reveal the whole point of this video now. I don't think that the 1075 is really worth it when you have the 1250, because in terms of speed, they are still quite similar in terms of high end, in terms of top end, and also in terms of carving. Yes, the 1075 turns a little better because the wingspan is less, but again, the more carve that you get and the more speed that you get with the 1075 don't make up for how much less you can pump the 1075. All right, so with the 1250 I was able to do like 4 or 5 minute runs up and downwind. With the 1075, this time was shrunk down to 90 seconds maybe, all right? So still, you can pump it quite a bit, again, like I said, especially for a foil of this size. And maybe what I'm saying doesn't really translate when it comes to downwinding as well. But to be honest, at least for flat water pumping and the conditions I tried these foils in, I don't think that the difference is worth it, right? For sure, I wouldn't take both, but if I were to choose between the two, I would choose the 1250 10 times, because yes, turns a little less, yes, goes a little slower, but it's easier to start and you can pump it for probably twice as much. So it's a no-brainer, right? So that said, let's come back to this 1075. Now, I talked about the start. You gotta take some speed. You gotta be a little sharper. And when it rolls, like I said, you can recover it a bit better than you can with 1250, because again, the wingspan is reduced compared to its bigger brother. And when it comes to pumping, you definitely feel like you have to dig the foil a little more to make it pick up speed, as you can expect from a foil of 1000 square centimeter. You have to, just pump a little deeper. Still, you want to keep the foil quite flat, especially if you're pumping upwind. These foils, probably like most downwind foils, like to be pumped quite flat, so with a very low negative and positive pitch angle. But the pumping, despite it's a little bit more physical, a little bit more demanding, it's still very intuitive. Again, I tried foils of this size especially, and they're not intuitive to pump. You have to be very precise, otherwise you break them. Like you break them, you stall. So I think it's pretty intuitive despite the size. And just like its bigger brother, you can predict how it's gonna behave. Like the stall speed is that one. It's very precise. The glide is very predictable. It's pretty easy to find the hard spot on the board where it's to get the right timing when you're pumping and be efficient. So overall, it's very similar, like I said, to the 1250. But like I said, the 1250 is also newer, and for sure they're not getting worse over time. They're probably getting better, right? Because they get feeling, they improve the profiles, shapes, whatever, right? So that's the thing, right? I think that the 1250, because it's newer, it's probably better, right? And again, I would never take both, and I would choose the 1250 because again, you just get better, and the downsides are less than the pros. So 1075 is a good tool if you want to downwind, but like even if you're on code, if you're getting on code, I personally would not get it, because I would get at 1250 because it does the same but better, right? Or if you want something faster, then you could go for the one below that, which I don't remember which one is it, but yeah. I liked it. It's a good foil, it's a great foil, it's fun, but again, I wouldn't necessarily buy it now that we have the 1250R. Okay, so that was it. Again, I could talk about other stuff, but like I said, carving, all I said for the 1250 pretty much translates to the 1075, but the fact that it's a little faster, so you get a better top end. You probably get even a longer glide, and it turns slightly better. With the 1250, you really have to like shift your back foot a lot to be able to roll it or to get it back right after you roll it. With the 1075, this is alleviated. That is why, if you're probably downwinding, then it probably might make sense to use this foil over the 1250, because in those cases, it's very important to carve. So even a little improvement when it comes to carving makes a difference. So in that case, maybe it makes sense over the 1250. But at least for pumping and very light wind downwinding, no, I don't think so. So that's it. That is it. Let me just take my laptop so I can give you the exact scores and also, motivate those numbers, because otherwise it just looks like I'm throwing numbers. So I gave a level 7 to 10. So again, 1 being complete beginner and 10 being pro. I think that this foil is for people who are 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if you remember from the last review of the 1250, I gave 5 to 10 to the 1250. So you know what, I'm gonna give actually 6 to 10 to this one. Just a quick update. Look 6.5. I can't decide, because it's quite easy to start, to be honest, for its size again. Lightness, again, just like the 1250, 7.5. 7.5, it's quite light, but not the lightest because they prioritized stiffness. The construction quality, like I said, 8.5, just like the 1250. The user friendliness for the dog sort is a little lower, like I said, so 5 out of 10. User friendliness on the drop sort, 6, like the 1250. Because it's hard, because it feels hard when you pump it, which is a good thing when you pump, but because of that, it's harder to land gently on it, to land softly on it when you're jumping on it from a higher point. What else? User friendliness when it comes to pumping, I gave it a 9, and I gave a 10 to the 1250. So it's a little bit less intuitive, and it requires a bit more energy, but it's still quite pleasant to pump and satisfying to pump. The glide 10, probably 11. Carving 4.5 is slightly better than the 1250. Waves 6.5, because again, you can catch waves because it's so efficient, but you can't ride into, like, forget about carving into the waves. Maybe pros can, but I can't. Long distance 6.5, and that's really the thing, because if you again compare the scores between the 1250 and this 1075, they are all pretty similar, but then the long distance is really different, at least from what I found in my test. And in my opinion, it's not worth it, because you get a tiny little bit better in different areas, but then a lot less in a very important area, in my opinion. So yeah, I gave it a 6.5 when it comes to long distance, because it's demanding, it's physically demanding. I think, again, if you can pump the 1250 for 5 minutes, then you can probably pump this for 2 minutes, and it's not worth it, like, it's so much less. And then of course Downwinding 10, right? No two ways about it. So that is it. I hope that this was somehow helpful and gives you a bit more clarity. Like I said, if you don't have any cold foil and you're not necessarily into downwinding only, you want to use this foil for flat water pump, wake teeth, or light wind downwind, don't get it. Just get a 1250. Now, this is my personal review. You can watch other reviews from other people to get other opinions, but in my opinion, the 1250 is just a better choice overall. Like I said, the little improvements that you get in some aspects with the 1075 cannot make up for being so much more physically demanding to pump than the 1250. Not that it's exhausting to pump, but it's more exhausting for sure than the 1250. All right, so that's it. I'll see you in the next video next week or later this week, I don't know, because we have loads of reviews coming out, especially for pumping. All right, so see you next time.